Jordan Hollabaugh etched her name in history back in 2019 by winning the inaugural Cheyenne Frontier Days breakaway roping, and then again in 2020 when she was crowned the first ever National Finals breakaway roping average champion in Arlington, Texas. Jordan kicked off 2024 with a bang, picking up nearly 12,000 between Fort Worth and San Antonio, which only set the tone for the rest of her regular season as she is now headed to Las Vegas for her second National Finals breakaway roping with just shy of $78,000 won in the regular season. Jordan, thanks for taking time for us today. I'm excited to have you on.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Every year on the road looks different. Now, whether it be the horses you have on the trailer, who you're traveling with, how you've entered, or even your own personal trials, how does this, your second NFBR qualification, compare to your first? We know that the pandemic affected rodeo schedules and everything else that year, but you also hear that the second is almost harder because you feel the pressure to get back, or you know what it really took to qualify that first time. Talk to me about the last couple seasons, things you might have changed, focused on, or done differently, and what's made the biggest difference for you this year and how you're feeling now the regular season's wrapped up and you're headed to Vegas.
Very excited to be headed to Vegas. I've been there for the last 3 years commentating, so I'm excited to be on the other side of the mic this year. To answer your question, as far as it's changed, oh my gosh, my husband and I were just talking the other day about how far breakaway roping has changed and evolved even in the past few years, let alone I look back to 2020 when we had our inaugural NFBR. It's not even the same beast anymore. Absolutely. I think the first year that we made it, I went into the finals with 38,000. When we first started off our first year, I think there was like something like 50 rodeos that were total approved. And this past year, I think there was over 500. So it's definitely changed a whole lot. It's a total different game, and it's one of the toughest sports out there. I would dare to say, which I'm probably biased, but it is really, really, really tough. And so just to have the honor to get to compete at this year's NFBR is exciting with the girls that we get to rope with. And every year looks different. I think as far as one thing I've learned is on the road is you really can't make plans. Like you make plans and then God laughs and he changes them. So I think the biggest thing is, just committing to what works for you rodeo wise. And, we decided my husband goes with me and travels with me everywhere. And so we just decided where we were going to go and how we were going to do the summer run. And we stuck to it and tried to make it as user friendly as possible on our miles. And I think we went over like 40 some thousand miles this year. It was really, really neat. We battled through, got back to the NFBR. The last few years, I have been short of making the NFBR, and so there's been quite a few challenges and trials there. And really, I have to give thanks to those things for, one of the reasons I even have this chance to be at the NFBR, because I had to keep dusting myself off and getting back up and figuring out how to do better and how to be faster and, how to win. And so even though they were really hard years, the past few years, it's been exciting to get through some of those barrier breakers and get back to this NFBR this year.
Well, trusting your plan and sticking to the course seems to be working for you guys because after a strong showing at the indoors this winter, you continue to pick up big checks in Ada, Abilene, Waterville, and Jerome, Idaho, and then had a couple big wins over the fourth in Mandan and Oakley City. From your perspective, how did this year play out? Was it as consistent from your end as it appeared from the outside looking in, or did you have any major hiccups or, issues with horses, rigs, personal trials? Talk me through 2024 from your side of the fence.
I think I had a really good winter, came out of there and had a good Fort Worth, had a good San Antonio. But then after that, it honestly, the biggest check I think I came away with this summer was at Cheyenne. I won $7,000 at one time. So I just kind of chipped away, honestly, and was placing at every rodeo, or not every rodeo, but a lot of rodeos that we went to. And I think I ended up going to 90 some rodeos this year and placed at quite a few of them and just kept chipping away at them. So I didn't really have any huge, like stellar aha wins. The run in Abilene, Kansas was really cool. I was in the first performance. And that's just such an electric crowd there. They had a girl last year that had just been in an accident that they were praying for and stuff at that rodeo last year. And then this year, actually, she carried the American flag. She was riding a horse and they didn't think she would maybe ride or walk or any of that stuff again. So got to meet her at the rodeo and walk up and shake her hand. And so that was really a cool rodeo to be at and then come away with the win there. We had a pretty good year this year, rig wise. Last year, we had a lot of troubles. So this year, it seemed like really everything was fine. We had a couple blown tires. But other than that, it was pretty good. I had really, really, really good luck with my horses this year, and they stayed strong the whole way through, and they were a big blessing. So thankful for them. But yeah, we just kind of stayed out there, chipped away, and had a little bit of a dry spell, like the end and I say the fourth quarter, like near the Northwest. I was roping good, but just wasn't winning a whole lot. And it was the pressure time when you needed to be winning and didn't do any good at Puyallup and needed to make Sioux Falls. So I didn't get into Sioux Falls, which was really hard because that's a huge payoff for us and, was really, really good for the NFR or to make the NFR. There was huge money there. The rounds paid 11,000, the average paid 30 something. So it was an amazing event. Not to be at was really hard. So I ended up my season at Jasper, Alabama at a rodeo that I think added $1,000. It was a really, really cool rodeo, but like I was roping at 1,000 added and these girls were roping at all this money and I was just like clenching my nails. So it came down to a nail biter. But like I said, very thankful to be in there and come away with number 15 and get to rope in Vegas.
You hear professional athletes talk about the mental aspect of competition and how important goal setting can be. What does that look like in your rig? Do you guys try to break it down into smaller goals, like maybe hitting a certain dollar amount by a specific date or, to win the circuit? Or are you more of a big picture in-game type thinker that's been dialed in on Vegas, from the beginning of the season?
I think for me, everybody has goals set that, obviously what is your big picture and the end result and all those things. But I've had to do it a little bit differently because when I set goals in the past, I seemed to put way more pressure on myself than was needed to actually get that thing done. And then at the end, you look back and you're like, man, if I wouldn't have done that or if I would have done this. So obviously I had an end goal, getting to the NFR this year and that was our goal, but really, just kind of worked backwards from there and dumbed it down to what does it take to win every day in and out of the arena and trying to keep that in check and keep it simple and do your job on the calf that you've got drawn, which makes it sound easier said than done. But we just try to do it that way because for me, setting big goals and trying to always watch the money and all of that puts a lot of pressure on myself. And so I just don't function well that way. And so I've just tried to do it the other way of, hey, yeah, this is my end goal and work backwards to what does it take every single day to make that goal happen and focus on doing those things every day and then, see where they put you at the end of it.
I'm always interested in the entering process. Do you enter yourself or do you have someone take care of that for you? And is there a particular approach that you take, like focusing on certain setups or those with the most money? Or do you, try to go back to places you've had success at? What's that look like?
So I do enter myself. I am like a nerd. I have highlighters and calendars and all the things. So I enjoy entering myself. But, for us this year, honestly, I just tried to kind of keep it in a circle. We didn't have any, I think we had one overnight drive. The first couple years I was like, where can I go and can I make it there? And, I might have 1 hour in between. And it was really, really, really hard to rodeo that way for my husband and I. And so for us this year, I'm like, if we can't make it there, I think I flew one time this year. If I can't make it there in my rig in an amount of time that is feasible, then I'm not going to enter. And so that's kind of how we went about it this year. I don't know, right, wrong, or indifferent. But, I didn't go to some of the big rodeos that everybody else went to just because it was like crazy to even make that work. And so I tried to just do what was in our means and attainable. And I tried to literally draw a circle and try to stay in that circle and not go like too much zigzagging back and forth. And so that's how we did it this year. And, I'm sure that we'll continue to evaluate and change that moving forward. But, with the breakaway, literally, there's so many rodeos that have us and have had it equal money and given us that chance, those committees, PRCA, WPRA. And so there's so many chances out there. You got to be at the big ones and put your name down there. But every rodeo counts.
Has there been anything that's really caught you off guard or surprised you about life on the road? What's been the best and hardest parts of traveling full time for you?
For me, I like to have a routine, and that is so, so, so hard to keep out there on the road. I try to do my best to keep some sort of a routine, and we do, but you really never know what your day is going to look like. You just got to kind of take it by the fly. You don't know whether you'll be driving or not. There's just a lot of scenarios. That's the biggest struggle for me is not being able to have like a complex routine and a timeline. But my husband's really good and we've been able to adapt and all the things. As long as I have coffee, pretty much I can be happy. So I did have a coffee maker break this year, which was a tragedy, but went to Walmart, got a new one. So that was probably the biggest thing that happened. But you have to learn, or I've had to learn just to kind of be relaxed. I'm a little high strung. And so just kind of relax and take it as it comes and, kind of see where we go. But that's been one of the biggest challenges for me is it's really hard to have a routine out there.
In your professional career, you've already won Cheyenne and the 10 head average at the NFR, two bucket list rodeos for any cowboy or cowgirl. But if you had to pick one rodeo you'd especially like to win, what is it?
Pendleton would be one that I would really like to win just because it is one of the hardest rodeos there is mentally and physically to win at. The prestige of it is a cowboy event, and I think that that's really neat. And so every year I've done a little bit better at Pendleton. I've gotten a little bit faster, really close to making the short round, so it's going to get better one day. But yeah, I would have to say Pendleton.
The last time you qualified for the NFBR back in 2020, you ended the year in third place with just shy of 41,000 after picking up more than 26 of that at the finals. This year, you qualified in the 15th hole with $77,756. And the top 7 cowgirls are headed to Vegas with over 100 grand. To put that in perspective, at the first NFBR in 2020, Jackie won the world with 47,000, and the 15th cowgirl ended up with $15,000. It's no secret that Breakaway has taken the world by storm. But as someone who has rode that wave from day one, talk to me more about the growth you've seen and personally experienced over those last 4 or 5 years, the opportunities and what all that means to you personally. As a little girl that grew up, that wasn't an opportunity. That wasn't something, you were expecting to get to do. What does this mean to you, and what has that been like?
It's huge for me because at the end of the day, we get to do this as a career. So that's huge for me. And knowing that like this is what we get up and walk out the door and do every day is just really special. I never thought that would happen. I was having conversation the other day. We're doing the 15 days of Breakaway. So we're talking about my podcast. And I was talking to Tiara Gray about how when we got out of school, literally, we didn't know what we were going to do. And now that's not even a question. A lot of these girls are trying to hurry up school so that they can get out there and rodeo. So it's huge for me. I still pinch myself knowing like, hey, this is what we get to do. So I'm just very appreciative and grateful for everybody that has had a hand in it to date. And, all the things that they've done past and prior to this. There's been so many men and women that have worked for us to get here that are probably never going to get the appreciation that they deserve. And I just want to say thank you to them. I try to say thank you as much as I can, but without their hard work, we would not be here. And I hope those girls that get to reap the benefits of these years to come know about all the things that everybody has put forward and contributed. But I'm just impressed because 4 years ago, there was a handful of girls that could rope really good and catch good and were very consistent. Now there is over 200 ladies that are very consistent and can win on any day. The horsepower is amazing. And really, there's no time you can let off the gas anymore. Like you've got to have your foot on the gas and you've got to be aggressive every single run. There's no being smart anymore or being consistent or any of those things. Like, yes, you have to be consistent, but these girls are on their game. You've got to bring your A game at all time. And whether that's at a pro rodeo or a jackpot, the youth that's coming up. There's little girls that have 10 years old that are being 1.9 seconds. I think I was like 23 before I was a 1. So just the fact that the sport has grown so much, that competitors have grown, they're dialed in, they're focused, they're strategizing, they're dreaming about being a breakaway roper one day, being a world champion breakaway roper. It just gets tougher every single year. You look at the top 7, they have over 100,000 one. It's like you're trading money back and forth all year long with everybody out there. And so it's just exciting to see. I think it's one of the toughest things out there. I love to be a part of it, and it keeps me sharp, and you have to continue to grow and, get better every single day, day in and day out, because somebody else is if you're not. So I'm just glad to be a part of it and pretty excited that I get to rope during this time.
You can't talk about this explosion of the sport without looking at the greats and clinicians who helped to elevate the game, as well as you mentioned the stock contractors and the producers who included Breakaway in their amateur and open rodeos for years before the pro rodeos even thought about it. But I want to know who was instrumental in your personal career as a Breakaway roper and who you remember looking up to and wanting to rope like as a little girl.
Probably the person I look up to the most, I was going to say, is my husband. He's helps me every day, day in and day out. He's crazy for doing so. He should have married me. But yeah, so he's been probably the biggest person that's influenced my breakaway roping career. But actually, when I was a little girl, we didn't have breakaway, right? So I wanted to be the first girl that made the NFR heading. I wanted to be a team roper header. And I would look up to Speed Williams. He was one of my idols. But Tammy West and Beverly Robbins were 2 ladies that they actually team roped and headed at that time and were some of the best. So I looked up to them and how I could be better as a team roper and a header as a woman to, continue to sharpen my toolkit and be there one day. And I just always dreamed of being at the NFR and the team roping. And so now it's definitely not the team roping, but it's still pretty neat.
So when did it become, breakaway was a priority?
Yeah, breakaway some throughout high school and college. And, team roping was always my priority just because I loved it. I had really good horses and had quite a bit of success in that, and it was fun. And so really what drove me was I college rodeoed for 5 years. I went and did my undergrad at West Texas A&M, and then I got my master's. And all 5 years, I did not make the college finals in the breakaway. And the last year, I ended up fourth, so I was one out. And I was so mad coming out of there, knowing that, again, I didn't make the college finals. And it just made me so mad. And I'm like, why can't I do this? I'm telling Raymond, why can't I do this? Why have I not been able to do this? And he's like, you're going to have to commit to it. You're going to have to go all in. And I was like, well, let's do it. Let's figure it out. And so really probably when I was 23 years old, I priced my head horse and somebody bought him. And I was like, okay, here we go. We're breakaway roping. And really, I look back and that's been a little over 10 years ago, and it seems like not that long ago, but it's been a journey. But yeah, it was really a challenge for me from changing from my heading loop, which was just way different. Like I swung it flat and my elbow was down. And then everything Raymond has taught me, breakaway roping, has been getting my elbow up and getting my tip down. So it's a total different loop and total different symmetrics. And it was a really hard transition. So I quit heading because I really struggled with doing both, going back and forth. I'd either throw a great head loop on a breakaway calf, or I'd throw a great breakaway loop on a head and steer. And so I was like, I have to just commit to one thing. And so, yeah, about 10 years ago, I committed, and here we are.
You call Springtown, Texas home now, but your roots run deep in Pueblo, Colorado. Your mom, Debbie, and sister Riley are extremely accomplished cowgirls as well. How did you all get into rodeo? Do you still get to compete together at all, or what's that dynamic look like, and how has it changed? Have you all grown and progressed through the ranks of, youth, college, and now professional rodeo?
So my mom, dad, and sister have always, well, my sister hasn't. She did because I did. She's a copycat, but we've always rodeoed. My mom's mom and dad rodeoed, and my mom was really successful in college rodeo as well as team roping jackpots and women's rodeo. She's done a lot there. And, my sister and I grew up roping and all of the things. And so my dad professionally team roped for quite a while and tried to do that in the circuit rodeos. And so my mom and dad really gave everything for my sister and I. We had the best horses, the best rigs, like all you could get. We were at the best places. They gave us every opportunity to be successful as kids and in our divisions and all the things that we went to. And so, without them, we definitely wouldn't be where we're at today. And they always did it and loved it. My mom and dad still, my dad, I think not willingly, my mom literally loves to rope. She ropes every single day. She will rope every single day till she dies. Like she just truly loves roping. And my dad forcefully has to rope with her still. But, it's just been a part of my family. I really don't know anything any different, and I really wouldn't have it any other way.
You've touched on it, but a few years ago, you created the In the Loop podcast, sharing breakaway roping content from elite competitors, industry leaders, clinicians, coaches, and everything in between. Where did that brainchild come from, and what is your vision or goal for the podcast? How do you manage running that along with your other businesses from the road?
The podcast just came from the fact that we were traveling around the road and I was getting to meet all of these amazing people. And ever since I was little, I've always loved to visit and talk to people and learn about their lives and their stories. And so I just thought, you see, these certain people and you see them as ropers, but really there's so much more behind the scenes of how they got there and where their story is and how it's taken them. And so I was like, I would love to do that. And so I was praying about it and I really wanted to start one, but podcasts at that time were pretty relatively new and I didn't know anything about it. And so I was like, okay, God, I'm going to submit this podcast to Apple. And if it gets approved, then I will do it. And I'm thinking like, never will this happen. And the next day I got an email saying, hey, your podcast has been approved. And I was like, oh God, okay, now we got to do this. And so literally I was sitting in my truck at the Texas Circuit Finals with Martha Angeloni. And I said, hey, you want to do a podcast? And she was like, sure. So at that time, I literally had my phone. I put it on voice record. Like I would hold it up to my mouth and I'd ask her a question. And then I'd hold it to her mouth and ask her a question. So that's how it all started. And, I didn't really have any idea of where it would go or just how big it would get. And I'm just continually taken back by the people that come up to me as we've traveled around the world and been like, I love your podcast. I listen to your podcast. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. So I love telling those stories. And, I started being strictly breakaway roping. And then I'm like, there's only so much breakaway roping a person can talk about. So then we started evolving into the industry and in general. And maybe people that don't even rodeo, but that I've met through rodeo and because of rodeo. So rodeo has given my husband and I and everything that we've got, and I'm just so thankful for the doors it's opened. But yeah, so that's a podcast. It's called In the Loop, and we run an episode every week. And really, we've just kind of evolved into remote podcasting, and I've got some mics now that I'm going to take with me on the road, and I can stick on people real quick and get a 5-10 minute interview. And that's where we're really headed with it this next year, is showcasing like what life is like on the road. Cause I think everybody wants to be a part of it, but they don't really know what's going on. So we're going to try to do some more behind the scenes, sitting around the trailer talk a little bit this year on the podcast. And we're just getting ready to, one of the things that we do every year is we do the 15 days of Breakaway, and we interview the top 15 girls. So that's been fun this year to do. My husband's actually going to get to interview me, so it's been fun to be able to hand the mic over this year and let him do that. But yeah, I love it. I love to get to talk to people in our industry and share their stories, and that's kind of where it came from.
December 3rd and 4th, you will back in the box to run 10 head at your second national finals breakaway roping at the South Point. What horses are you taking to Vegas? And, how are you preparing them, but yourself as well?
So I'm going to take Cookie, which is the sorrel mare that I've rode all year long. I rode her at the winter rodeos. And then I'll also be taking, not really sure yet whether it's going to be Frankie, which is the other sorrel horse that I rode. I rode him at like Cheyenne, Salinas, those outdoor rodeos. Or I might be taking Leonard, which is the little bay horse that I've had. He's coming back from an injury, and he will be ready to go by then. So it's going to be a battle between Leonard and Frankie, who actually gets to go in the trailer. But Cookie will be my main horse out there. The first NFR I made, I rode her there. That was her first big rodeo she'd ever been to. And she just stepped up and performed for me we got to rope 12 calves at that time. So we roped 12 calves then. But yeah, so I'm excited to get a chance to ride her again at the NFR and see what we can get done.
You were the fastest on 10 head back in 2020 with more than 300,000 up for grabs this year, an increase of 50,000 from even last year. Is that average race going to be your focus again, or, going after round money? What's your thoughts going into it?
I love the average. One of the things that I get to do every day is, we get to rope every day. We get to practice every day. And so the average is something that I've always loved and would love to be a part of. The rounds they're huge, but really those top 7 girls are the only girls within our payout that have a contention for the world title. Just like one of the things that we're getting to, but we're not there yet, is, you can come in 15th at the NFR and still have a chance for a world title. But as a breakaway roper, we're not there yet. So I think from 8th to 15th, you're going to see everybody's running for that average title. So it's definitely going to be really, really tough. And we're just going to rope one calf at a time and see where it ends up.
Speaking of the money in Vegas, what's your 2 cents on the Thomas and Mack and payout debate? Is the goal to rope there as soon as possible? Is getting equal money more important right now? There's so many opinions that fly around, but, just as many contractual and logistic concerns that have to be considered. What are your thoughts on that front? And, what do you hope to see? But also realistically, what do you think the next 4 or 5 years will look like as far as the NFBR is going to look like?
I think, obviously women, we all want to go all in, right? So we're like, we want to be at the Thomas and Mack. We want to be roping for that kind of money. And that's just a huge dream that I won't ever stop believing in. But I do understand, what comes with that. And I do also understand that, we just got started doing this professionally 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And so it does take time. There are things that go along with it, from what does the stock look like? Where do you come up with that extra added money? What about the time constraints? Where would you park? I mean, there's so many different things going on behind the scenes that we really don't have control over. The one thing I do know that breakaway ropers bring to the table is we are going to be showing up consistently at every rodeo we can. We are filling the perfs, whether it's $1,000 added rodeo or a $100,000 added rodeo. The perfs are full. It's the biggest event in rodeo, including barrel race. They gripe. There's just breakaway ropers everywhere in the parking lot. Like literally there's over 100 at a lot of these different rodeos. And so I do know that the breakaway roping has helped growing rodeo in totality. It's helped filling these perfs where maybe some of the rough stock riders don't show up to those lower paying added money rodeos. The breakaway ropers do. And so I think that that's really neat to see that the numbers are continuing to grow, continuing to explode, continuing to show up and rope, which also helps the communities. It helps the associations. We're bringing in money in a lot of different ways, not just for ourselves, but for these rodeo committees, for the pro rodeo associations that we're under. So there's a lot of growth I see. For me, I think it is knowing that, when you commit to rodeoing, nobody holds a gun to your head and tells you, well, you have to go to 100 rodeos and you have to do this, you have to do that. That's all a decision that we personally make, right? We personally make that decision to rodeo, to spend our money on fuel and fees and all of those things. So that's a personal decision. I would like to see the growth in the added money at the NFBR, because we are committing to doing this just like any other cowboy or cowgirl is doing. And so, yes, I'm very grateful to get to show up and rope at 10 rounds for $6,000 rounds and a $13,000, $14,000 average. However, I do know that it takes so much more than that to continue to go down the road and do what we do. And so the guys that are committing to rodeo, the ladies that are committing to rodeo, are rodeoing because at the end of the day, they get a chance to run at 10 rounds that pay $30,000. It's life-changing money. It keeps them going all year long. And so I think for us and for me personally, it's getting more added money there. And, I know we're doing our time, we're serving our due diligence and all of those things, but we continue to show up. And so I'm excited to see how the associations that we rodeo with are going to continue to show up for us there.
Well, as a fan of the sport, I hope you're right and that we see those things come to fruition in the next couple of years. Jordan, thanks again for sitting down with us today. You do a fantastic job from the arena floor on behalf of the Wrangler Network, but we're sure excited to see you on the other side of the mic in Vegas this year.
Thanks, Sam.